Well, hi everybody. Today I'm going to be reviewing the FlyingIron Simulations Mark 9 Spitfire. This version is 1.0.8 that I'll be reviewing. Some of you may have noticed that I don't have cannons on my Spitfire, and I'll be going over why that is later on in the video. But for right now, let's just go ahead and hop in the cockpit and get started. Alright, well, here we are in the Spitfire's cockpit. It looks like a Spitfire, which is always a good sign. So we'll start out here by going through the instrument panel. And we'll start here on the left side. So up in the upper left corner, you have your flaps lever and your nav lights. You have your oxygen regulators here. And then you have a clock. Now you have a pneumatic pressure gauge down here, and I don't think that this works the way that it actually works in a Spitfire, but we'll go through it anyway. So these two needles here are your brake pressure for the right side and the left, the right and the left brake. Now the parking brake is engaged, so they're up at 12, and when it's disengaged, they'll be down here at 0. This needle here measures the available supply that you have. So again, the parking brake is engaged, so this is at 0. When you disengage the parking brake, this will begin to build itself back up. Then you have the elevator trim indicator here and your landing gear indicator. Now, I'm going to call this the radio box because I don't know what else to call it. But to get your radio to work, you are going to need to press, A, B, or C. And when you do that, on this panel there are 4 lights, and one of the lights, the corresponding light, will come on to let you know that it's on. Now D is actually engine damage, so if you want to turn engine damage on or off, you press this button and damage is on, and this light will light up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just click those. And then you have your magnetos here. We'll move to the center of the instrument panel. You have an airspeed indicator here, an altimeter, your attitude indicator, a directional compass, climb indicator, and you have a slip and turn gauge. Now slip is up here at the top and turn is down at the bottom. On the right side, you have your RPM gauge, your boost gauge, your oil pressure gauge, your oil temperature gauge, and your radiator temperature gauge. And then down here you have your fuel gauge. And to make the fuel gauge actually work, you're going to need to press this button and it will move the needle. Now this gauge only measures your bottom tank. It does not measure the top tank. So if it only measures 37 gallons. So if this is decreasing, if you're below 37 gallons, it actually means that you're somewhere below 45. I think it's 45% of your fuel is left. So, keep an eye on that. Then we'll come over here to the left side of the cockpit, and you have your pitch trim wheel here and your rudder trim here. Now it's difficult to see, but underneath the pitch trim wheel is your fuel pump switch. Then you have your pitot heat and your radiator flap. Now by default, the radiator flap is set to auto. If you move it back, apparently we're going to close the door. If you move it back, we're going to open the door. I'll click that later. So when this is back, it's open all the time. This is your radio frequency, and this here is your transponder. Now you have the carburetor air filter lever here. I don't know that this is basically designed so that you don't suck dust into the carburetor while you're on the ground. There isn't any dust in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so you don't really have to worry about it. It works. You can open it, close it, but there's probably no real reason to do that. So now up here you have your mixture, which is the red lever, your throttle, and your propeller pitch here. They're a little difficult to see because they're real nice and close together, but this is propeller pitch. So we'll move to the center here. Your parking brake is right here on your stick. We're going to go ahead and hide the stick. This is your primary compass, and we'll go over that. I'll go over that after we get the thing started here in a second. And you have your fuel cock, you have the booster coil, and the starter button. You have a primer here, which is this kind of gold knob. You're going to need to unlock this. You do that by using the mouse wheel, and then once it says unlocked, you can actually prime the motor. And you have your tank fuel pressure here, and the manual says that you need to use this if you're above 12,000 feet. I find that doesn't seem to make that much of a difference until you're somewhere above 16, maybe 18,000 feet. And then you have the wobble pump here, and I'll explain that when we actually begin starting the plane up. Now on the right side of the cockpit, you have your landing gear lever here. You have your windshield de-ice here, and this is your emergency gear handle. So this only works once, and what this does is it forces your gear down if the hydraulic system is damaged in the plane. Now this is Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I've never had a circumstance where I've needed to use it. I assume it works. It does work. If I push the button or click on it, it will force the gear down, I think. I haven't checked, but I assume that it works. Most of the things on this plane work, so. That is, I guess the last thing here is your gun sight. So over here, where you would normally adjust the gun sight, if you click on it, it will hide the gun sight and show you a GPS unit here. Now, I'm going to leave the gun sight on because it looks strange to me to not have the gun sight in the Spitfire. But that is everything, so we will go ahead and start the plane up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is turn on the fuel cock, and then you'll need to turn the battery on. The easiest way to turn the battery on is to just move the throttle forward, because the battery switch is right here, and moving the throttle forward will turn it on. And come up here to the left and the right magnetos and turn those on. And we're going to come across to the other side, and as long as we're here, we're going to open the covers for the boost coil and the starter. Now we're going to use the wobble pump here, and the wobble pump is designed to provide a little bit of fuel pressure, to build up some fuel pressure for the plane for startup. And so you have this red light here. This light needs to be off before you start the plane. So the way you turn that, the way you clear that is you sit here and just click the wobble pump until that light goes out. Alrighty. You're going to want to come over here and unlock the primer. And then based on the temperature and everything of where I am, I'm going to need to prime this about 6 times. So I've got locked again. Okay. I think that's 6. And then come over here, and in between the booster coil and the starter button is where you're actually going to click to get the thing started. In real life, you would, use one finger to push the booster coil and then the other one to push the starter. But since the simulator doesn't let you use 2 fingers, this is kind of the workaround for it. So go ahead and click here, and the Spitfire starts up. Now, since I have realism on, you're going to want to let the Spitfire warm up for a little bit, let the oil temperature warm up, and I'm not going to make you sit through that. So I'll go ahead and close these and bring the stick back, and we'll close the canopy here and lock the door. If you don't lock the door, you can't actually close the canopy. And then close the canopy. So I'll real quick go through the compass here, and then we'll take the Spitfire off. So here's how you set up the compass for the Spitfire. It's kind of an odd looking compass for an airplane. It reminds me more of a ship's compass than anything else, but it's pretty simple. And so what you've got here is this cross in the center, and that is the magnetic pointer part of the compass. And up here at the top, you have this other cross, and this is north. So what you're trying to do is to line north on the bezel up with north on the pointer. And to do that, you unlock the bezel by clicking here, and then you, as long as your cursor is on the bezel somewhere, you can rotate it with the mouse wheel. So you want to rotate it around here until north points to north, and you should have these two lines should be parallel to one another, and this should be pointing north. And then this is your current heading. Now you're probably not going to get this exact because of the camera angle, but you'll get it close enough. And then come down here and lock it back down. Now you're going to have to kind of probably keep your eye on this and adjust it every once in a while you're flying, but that is how you set the compass up. Well, welcome to the end of the runway here. Don't taxi the Spitfire too fast. It really doesn't like that, and it'll make it difficult to turn. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to go over a couple of things before we get the Spitfire in the air. One is a thing that I was actually incorrect about. To have engine damage off, you want to press the D button and this light will come on. So if this light is on, it means that engine damage is off. Now we're going to fly with the engine damage on today, so I'm going to make sure this light is off. Now if you are flying with engine damage on, the gauges that you're really going to want to pay attention to, most importantly, is going to be your oil temperature gauge and then your RPM gauge. Your water radiator gauge isn't so important, but I'll go ahead and go through it anyway. As far as your oil temperature goes, you want to keep it here at about 90 degrees. 95, you'll probably get about, maybe 5 minutes worth of flight time out of it before you damage the engine. Up here at 100, you really don't have that much time before you damage the engine. So, you know, just keep an eye on this gauge, keep it here at about 90, and you'll be fine. As far as the water radiator goes, like I said, I haven't really had any problem with it. It sits here at 115 degrees, which is where it's supposed to sit. I've never overheated the plane, so if for some odd reason you are above 115 degrees and it really starts climbing, you probably want to open the radiator flap and back the throttle off and let it cool down. Now as far as where you want to leave the RPMs, you want your RPM to be about, to be safe, 2700 will keep you from damaging the plane. You can put it up at 2800 and you will probably sit down here at probably about 91, 92 degrees in your oil temperature, which is fine. It won't damage the plane. So, you know, just keep an eye on your gauges and you should be okay. Now, the Spitfire on the ground is a very squirrely plane. Most of that has to do with its narrow wheelbase. As far as taking it off, some of its squirreliness comes from the application of throttle, which is why landing the Spitfire is slightly easier than taking the Spitfire off. But what you're going to want to do is sort of gradually increase the throttle, so you want to get it rolling and then go on up to full throttle. Now, there is kind of a sweet spot in between going too fast and going too slow. If you go too fast, it'll, no matter how much rudder you put into it, it's going to take you off the runway. And if you go too slow, it's going to make the plane want to roll a little bit. So it'll probably just take you some practice to find that sweet spot. But as long as you can really get the tail wheel off the ground, you're probably doing good, and you can probably actually get it in the air. It probably won't look pretty, but you should be okay. Most of the problems with this plane happen before you get the tail wheel off the ground. So we will go ahead here and take off. Gear up, and we're in the air. Now, stall speed for the Spitfire with the flaps up is a little above 90, according to the manual. I tend to think it's closer to, I don't know, maybe a little bit above 85. Now, I've forgotten which update this is, but since the update, I know I said it at the beginning of the video, but I can't remember what I said now. So, since the update that we're on, they seem to have fixed the parking brake so that you don't seem to nose plant the plane as much. It seems as though you can put more force into the braking, and your probability of nose planting it has gone down. That was probably a little bit more realistic the other way. I'm not entirely sure. I've never flown a Spitfire, but the Spitfire didn't have anything but a parking brake, so you had to kind of feather the parking brakes so that you didn't lock the brakes up and nose plant the plane. The other thing that you're not going to have to worry about here is the gravity-driven fuel pump. This is a Mark 9, so I'm pretty sure that they got rid of the gravity-driven fuel pump by the Mark 5, but this, you're not going to have to worry about doing negative Gs or going inverted and starving the engine of fuel. I'm not sure if that's because that's, you know, how the Mark 9 was, or that's just a limitation of Microsoft Flight Simulator and what you can actually model for the plane. So we'll go ahead and bring it in here for a landing. Now, I tend to land the Spitfire mostly on feel, so I don't pay attention that much to my instruments. So I will do my best here to kind of let you know what you kind of need to pay attention to, and kind of how I land the plane. So I like to come in rather slow. Nobody's going to be shooting at you. You're not going to have to worry about anybody shooting you while you're landing, so you might as well come in slow. It makes it easier. And this Spitfire in particular does not really like to bleed speed, so, which is a good thing and it is a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you're going too fast and you're trying to land. So I find that reducing your propeller pitch to about half helps out, and then once you get down below 160 miles an hour, we'll go ahead and put the gear down and drop the flaps. Now, it says to not put the flaps down until below 160 miles an hour. It doesn't seem to damage anything even if you do, but we'll try and follow the warning here. Now, you may want to come in at an angle as well to the runway and then kind of turn into the runway. The Spitfire's nose is somewhat obtrusive and making a straight approach a little bit difficult, but we'll see how we can do here. Now, I'm going to try and two-point land this. Usually results in me bouncing down the runway, so we'll see how this goes. But you're going to want to touch down just above stall speed, which is 70 miles an hour with your flaps down. Oh, we had a little bit of a bounce. And then pull back on the stick to ground the tail wheel and apply the brakes. And we're on the ground. And that's how you land a Spitfire. So just in case I wasn't completely coherent while I was landing, stall speed for the Spitfire with the flaps down is 70 miles an hour. So you're going to want to probably touch down at like 75 maybe. It also may be easier to 3-point land the Spitfire. I prefer to try and land with a 2-point landing in this plane, so. But anyway, that is that. We'll go ahead and go into the review here in a second. I will say that the Spitfire is probably just going to take you some time practicing with it to figure it out. It is a fantastic plane once you get it off the ground. All of its problems are on the ground. It has zero problems in the air. It's a lot of fun to fly. So just, take some time, practice with it. You'll be fine. So we'll go ahead and do the review now. Alright everybody, well, that was fun. I'm going to talk about two things real quick before I actually go over what I think of the plane. One is kind of a shortcut, so if you don't want to use the wobble pump and startup, you can just flip the fuel pump on, give it a couple seconds, and then you can start the plane. The other is why I don't have cannons on my Spitfire, and that's because I bought it through the Microsoft Flight Simulators Marketplace, and for some reason you don't get the cannons when you buy it through Marketplace. So I would recommend buying it from FlyingIronSimulations.com. It really does actually really annoy me that I don't have Hispanos on it, to the point where I've actually thought about going and buying it again from the website just so that I can have the cannons on there. But anywho, as far as the sort of technical part of the review goes, it's a fantastic plane. It really is. Now, it's 26, we'll round it up and call it 26 bucks. It comes with two versions, so you get the one that I've been flying around, and then you get the clipped wing version of it. So you technically are getting two planes. It's the same plane. I'm not sure. I hardly ever fly the clipped wing version. The clipped wing version should be a little bit faster than the standard version. I don't know if it is or not, but it should be a little bit. In real life, it's a little bit faster. So anyway, as far as the texture quality goes, it's really good. Everything looks fantastic. The sound quality's good. It sounds pretty good. Now I've actually heard the Spitfire in real life, heard the Merlin and everything, and it's one of those sounds that is very, very hard to recreate for audio and actually sound like the real thing. I don't know why. I don't know if it's probably just one of those things where when you're in person, it's much different than when you're hearing it over speakers. But it does sound good. As far as leaving aside the engine noise, all the switches sound really good. There's a lot of little detail in how things sound. So the aerobatics of the plane are absolutely fantastic. It really is. It is a lot of fun to fly. I've had a lot of fun in it. I continue to have a lot of fun in it. I've had it since I guess it's November right now, so I think I've had it since maybe March or April of 2021, something like that. I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed it before they did any of the updates for it, but Flying Iron's a good add-on company, whatever you want to call it, third-party company. So I would recommend you go through their website just to support them. But anywho, that's going to pretty much be it today. This ran a little bit longer than I was expecting, so the livery section of this is going to be kind of short. There are, I believe, 9 liveries off the top of my head, and I'll try and kind of condense that so you can at least see them. But you know, I think we are going to be approaching something like 30 minutes with this one. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope there's a next time.